Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Grueling Truth. We got a special Friday night boxing edition brought to you by Gridiron Mo, a new interactive football app where you get to call what you think the offense or defense should do during a live NFL game and see what all other fans have called also. Check out Gridiron Mo at www.gridironmo.com. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster, and as always, I want to welcome in my co-host, mythical Dave Siderski. How you doing tonight, Dave?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Mike?
All right. How's the weather up there?
It's cooled down a little bit over the last couple of days.
Yeah, here too.
Yeah.
I guess you're all excited about the New England Patriots too, huh?
Yeah. They. Well, I knew they were going to win, of course.
Well, of course. But
yeah,
they already knew what was going to happen in the game because they cheat, right? I'm so sick of seeing that stuff on Facebook too. I'll tell you.
Now they're supposedly bugging the phones and.
Well, if they are, it just makes them smarter than everybody else. But, all right. Well, we'll save that for our next football show we do together. But
okay.
We're going to go to top 10 light heavyweights in boxing history tonight. So you want to start us off with number 10?
Yes. My number 10 is an old-timer, Tommy Gibbons. He was an incredible 96, 5-4, 48 knockouts over a 14-year career. He was never a world champion, but he faced the iron of his generation. He beat guys like George Chipp, battling Levinsky, who was an outstanding light heavyweight champion. Georges Carpentier, who's in the Hall of Fame. Kid Norfolk, who's also in the Hall of Fame. Billy Misk, he beat 3 times. He split 4 fights with the great Harry Greb. And he gave Jack Dempsey fits. And I think, given his accomplishments, he has to have a place on this list.
Yeah. Don't agree with it, but I'm not too far from being in agreement with it, if you know what I mean. I got him just outside of my top 10. I did consider it. I think a lot of people just consider him a heavyweight.
He's kind of one of those tweeners.
Yeah, and that was the one where they fought in 1923, I believe, in Shelby, Montana.
Yes.
Yeah, where the entire town went broke putting up the fight. I think, was that a Tex Rickard promotion?
Yes, I believe it was.
Now, I remember reading at one time that Dempsey ended up making like $250,000 off the fight, but Gibbons actually just received expense money, and that was it.
That stinks. that I didn't know.
Like you want to get a little paid. I don't know. Yeah. As back there, maybe it included beer and a prostitute at a saloon, so you never know.
Maybe that made it worth his while.
Yeah, beer and prostitutes can fix a lot of things, but as long as you ain't the one paying for it. But my number 10 is the Pittsburgh Kid, Billy Conn. It's probably wrong of me to venture outside of the division for evidence, but it's hard not to let the fact that 169-pound Conn almost beat a peak Joe Louis. He was a cunning, tough, cat-quick, hard-edged guy. Came up the hard way, fought the best in the light heavyweight division at the time. For a long period, though, he was a brilliant fighter. Beat Hall of Famers Fred Apostoli. I'm never sure how to say that name, but I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And Gus Lazinovich. Also beat top contenders, former champions like Fritzy Zivic, Vince Dundee, Young Corbett III. And countless more at 175. So I've got him at number 10. I think he was a solid light heavyweight for a decade.
No arguments for me. I have Conn a little higher on my list, but not much. He is actually, do you want me to go into my number 9 now?
Yeah, if you want.
My number 9 is Billy Conn.
Well, especially if it's Billy Conn, because then we can just kind of roll this over.
Exactly. For many of the exact reasons that you said. Again, it's not necessarily relevant to light heavyweight, but the fact that he extended the great Joe Louis certainly speaks to his caliber as a fighter. He defeated many outstanding fighters. The one reason why I wouldn't have him higher was he wasn't champion for a very long time. I believe he held the title for only slightly over a year and only defended 3 times. But overall, he belongs.
Okay. My number 9 would be Jimmy Bivens. Bivens defeated Hall of Famer Charlie Burley, who I know is high on your top 100 list, in his first year as a pro. He also beat the reigning champion Gus Lazinovich in 1942. Title wasn't on the line, and he finished out the year with a win over future champion Joey Maxim. Actually had 3 wins over heavyweight contenders in 1943, scored a decision over Ezzard Charles, rose from the canvas to stop Lloyd Marshall in 1945. And Bivens was in the midst of a long winning streak when he stopped Archie Moore in 6 rounds. But at that point, I think he was struggling to make the weight. So, but I think that the wins that he had over there, I mean, he's got a total of 7 wins over light heavyweights who are in the Hall of Fame. So that's why Jimmy Bivens is my number 9.
Okay, Bivens was just outside of my top 10, but I can see the argument for. Great fighter. Another one of those guys who was unfairly denied a shot at the title. He'd probably be somewhere around my 11 or 12, and I did have him in my top 100.
Yeah, there was a bunch of black light heavyweights about that time that were kept away from title shots.
Yes, I believe they called the group Murderers Row.
Yeah, and the 30s and 40s might have been the best the light heavyweight division ever was. I would say the 30s and 40s, and then, maybe, late 60s through the early 80s?
Yeah, particularly that era, between, the mid-late 70s and the early 80s.
Yeah. But I was trying to include Bob Foster a little bit there, Dave. Give me credit.
Fair enough.
So, who you got at number 8?
My number 8 is Tommy Loughran. One of the early greats of the light heavyweight division, won the title in October of 1927 with a decision victory over Mike McTeague, who's in the Hall of Fame. Defended 5 times. Fought Harry Greb 5 times, winning once. Drew with Gene Tunney. Beat young Stribling. Beat Jimmy Slattery. Beat Georges Carpentier. Also holds wins over Mickey Walker, Jim Braddock, Jack Sharkey, and Max Baer.
They also beat Jimmy Delaney, who was a good fighter.
Yes, he was a good fighter. That's one that I missed.
That's why I'm here. Go ahead. Did you include Jeff Smith also?
Yep. Yes, he did. He split 2 fights with Jeff Smith, I believe.
Yeah.
Who was a really good middleweight.
Yeah.
So definitely, one of the greats of the light heavyweight division, and definitely belongs on the list.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the film on the Loughran-Braddock fight, but, I mean, Loughran completely dismantled him and might have won every round.
I have not seen that video, but I have seen descriptions of the fight.
Yeah.
And
you're talking about that movie, aren't you?
Actually, no.
The movie got his ass whipped, too, so it's the same thing. All right, I disagree on Loughran because I got him slightly higher. But That's why I'll start off at number 7 next time.
All right.
My number 8, don't know if you got him in your list or not, but I've got Roy Jones Jr.
I do.
The ultimate, you've got kind of the naked eye observation versus the resume conundrum. And would Jones have beaten some guys ranked above him? Probably. I mean, he might have beat them all. I mean, the guy was an unbelievable talent. But he suffers greatly in the area of opposition. He reigned as light heavyweight title holder for 8 or 9 years. But much of that time, he was considered the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He did beat some good fighters. I mean, he had a title-winning effort against Mike McCollum. But let's face it, McCollum was way past his prime, I think. The sizzling rematch knockout against Montel Griffin might have been the best he was. He just walked out and destroyed Griffin, and Griffin was a top-notch light heavyweight. The body shot KO over Virgil Hill, but once again, Virgil Hill, I think, was past his prime. So really you come down to he beat some good fighters. Lou Davalli, Reggie Johnson, Eric Harding, Julio Cesar Gonzalez. He had the close win over Tarver before Tarver took him down. But I think the one thing that sticks out to me was his inability to make a fight with Darius Michalczewski, who was for a long time the obvious number 2 guy. And I don't think it was befitting of a man of Roy Jones's talent to not fight him. But I also think a man of his talent, it would be wrong not to include him in a top 10 list.
Totally agree. And I have, coincidentally, Roy Jones Jr. as my number 7. I think he was better at 168. I think that was his best weight. At 175, yes, he cleaned out the division. As you said, you can question his opposition, and I also think he was less dynamic as a light heavyweight. He became a little more safety first.
Well, I think a lot of that he got a little bit older too, though.
Yes, there's some truth to that. But certainly, yeah, you can question the opposition. He beat some good fighters there. Pretty much everybody that was there except for Michalczewski. But yeah, the opposition was somewhat mediocre. But a great fighter, and one of the 2 signature fighters of the 90s, along with Pernell Whitaker. So he definitely belongs.
Well, and like Lennox Lewis, I think, is a signature fighter of the 90s also.
He'd be up there. Yeah.
He's ahead of those because he was the heavyweight champion of the world and he beat everybody ever fought.
He certainly beat him head-to-head.
Well, he beat everybody. Oh, yeah, he would have destroyed him. Whitaker could have ran for a while, but he got tired and got knocked out. My number 7 was in agreement with your number 8, I believe, which was Tommy Lofgren, the Phantom of Philadelphia. I think you pretty much covered it. And what you didn't cover, I added in, so I kind of screwed myself there. Huh? But I think the one thing people don't realize is Lofgren's final defense was against the future heavyweight king, Jim Braddock, also. So, I mean, the guy quit when he was on top of his game, I believe, which not many people do. And to draw against Gene Tunney, I mean, is better than almost everybody else did against Gene Tunney. I think Tunney only lost one time, so hard to ignore that, too. So we go to number 6. You want to start it out, or you want me to? Sure. My number 6 might be a little bit of a surprise, but I'm going to go with Sam Langford. Really? Because that's my 6 also.
Oh, God. Okay. This guy, he's hard to pigeonhole.
Yeah, because he fought everywhere from, welterweight or middleweight to heavyweight.
Exactly. And you got to put him, he's in my top 5 pound for pound ever. You got to put him on one of these lists. And 175 is probably the closest to his natural weight. I think for most of his major bouts, he was somewhere between 155 and 180. What can you not say about this guy? 24-year career, over 300 bouts, 210 wins, 128 knockouts. He fought everybody. All of the greats from lightweight to heavyweight in his era.
Well, and I'll tell you, just to interject real quick, the thing that impressed me most about his career, and I got to interject since we're both 6. We got to share this one, Dave. Quit holding.
Fair enough.
But he turned pro in 1902. In 1903, he was beating the likes of the legendary Joe Gans.
Yes.
And Gans at that point had already fought almost 150 fights.
Yes. Yeah. And you have wins over Stanley Ketchel, Philadelphia Jack O'Brien, who's considered a great light heavyweight, Norfolk, Tiger Flowers, Jack Blackburn, and the list goes on and on.
Sam McVeigh, Harry Wills.
Dixie Kidd.
Fireman Jim Flynn.
Yeah, we could go on all night about this.
And the thing about that is when you give the names, you go everywhere from middleweight Hall of Famers to heavyweight Hall of Famers, dang near.
Yeah.
Or at least guys that fought for the title at those weights.
Yeah, if I compiled correctly, I believe he has 26 wins over fellow International Boxing Hall of Famers, which is mind-blowing. I think the only guy who has more is Harry Greb.
Yeah, that's not a bad record to have either. So.
Not at all.
So we'll move on to number 5. My number 5 is a guy that I think could probably beat everybody above him, but I just don't know if the resume holds up. But my number 5 is Michael Spinks. Hard-punching, awkward, deceivingly tough. The only fight he lost was his final bout. That was at heavyweight when he was past his prime and his knees were shot. As we said, probably the second best era in the light heavyweight division. He cleaned it up. I mean, he scored wins over Murray Sutherland, Yaki Lopez, Marvin Johnson. And the thing was, he knocked out Lopez and he knocked out Johnson, which not too many people ever did. Won his first bout over a guest that we've had in the past, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. Made title defenses over talented contenders like Vonzell Johnson, Mustafa Wasaja, Jerry Celestine, Johnny Davis, Eddie Davis, David Sears. I was just kidding. That don't really count. But Burt Young, who was Paulie in the Rocky movies, managed him. Probably his biggest win in the light heavyweight division was against Dwight Muhammad Qawi, which was a 15-round decision where he basically dominated the fight. So my number 6 is Michael Spinks.
Okay. I have Spinks a little higher on my list. My number 5 is Bob Foster.
Okay.
Some people would have him as number 1 on their list. I think of the 8 fights that he lost, I think only 1 occurred at light heavyweight, and that was relatively early in his career. Won the title with a devastating 4th-round knockout over Dick Tiger in May 1968. Basically cleaned out the division over the next 6 years, defended 14 times, which is a record there for an undisputed title holder. A lot of people, or most people, might recognize him more for his failures at heavyweight, but the guy was pretty much unbeatable at light heavyweight and just a devastating power puncher.
Well, I'll kind of feed off of that because he's my number 4. So, okay. I mean, the thing to me that keeps him that low, and I think he could be even lower. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem putting him below Spinks because I think if him and Spinks fought, I think Spinks could have taken him. But, I mean, he had the big win over Dick Tiger in 4 brutal rounds to win the title. But really, his main part of his career was probably 61 through 72, 73. He got old about the same time that, the Spinks guys, all those contenders and everything were coming up where he would have had some competition. The competition thing, like the Roy Jones Jr. thing, kind of hurts him, I think. But I've got Bob Foster at 4. You got him at 5. So I don't know what your thoughts on the subject are, if you have any more thoughts or what. But.
The reason I wouldn't have him higher, he only has 1 victory over a fellow Hall of Famer, and that was Dick Tiger, who was above his best weight and past his prime. I think he was close to 40 years old at that point. But certainly deserves a prominent place on the list.
All right. Who you got at number 4?
My number 4 is your number 5, Michael Spinks.
Huh?
Michael Spinks. And
Michael Spinks at 4? Okay.
Michael Spinks, yes. It's a shame that most sports fans' memories of him are probably limited to that 1 fight with Mike Tyson. He was absolutely brilliant at light heavyweight. As you said, he beat Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, who was a really good champion, by a 15-round decision. He cleaned out the division, dominating over a 4-year period, defeating Dwight Muhammad Qawi in a unification match, one of the most anticipated light heavyweight matchups probably ever, and a guy like Marvin Johnson, who was also a pretty good champion. Probably could have reigned there forever had he chosen to stay at light heavyweight, but he chose to move up to challenge Larry Holmes, and the rest, as we know, is history.
All right, so that brings us to our top 3. Before we get to our top 3, let's check out this message from DraftKings.
Your season-long fantasy football lineup is locked in and ready for action, but you don't have to wait till Week 16 to get paid. Put your fantasy skills to the test starting Sunday at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site where you could kick the season off by winning $2 million. It's the biggest fantasy football contest ever. $10 million in prizes are up for grabs, including $2 million for first place and $1 million for second. One-week fantasy means no season-long commitments. It's fantasy football on demand. Play where you want, when you want, with the players you want. Then turn your love of football into a life-changing payday. Just pick up your players, pile up the points, and pick up the cash. That's it. You've never experienced football like this. This isn't fantasy as usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. Hurry to DraftKings.com now and use promo code SPREAKER to play for free for a shot at $2 million in the Week 1 Millionaire Maker. Enter SPREAKER for free entry now at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
All right, guys, we're back with our top 10 light heavyweights in boxing history. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster. On the line with me is my co-host, Dave Siderski. So, Dave, I'll go ahead. I'll give you my number 3, since you get to talk all you most of the time because you pick the same thing I do. But my number 3 is Ezra Charles. I could have him higher, but I think the other two guys just had a better resume at light heavyweight. The Cincinnati Cobra never got a title shot at 175. But I still think he makes a great case for being one of the greatest light heavyweights of all time. I think the thing keeping him out of the 1 or 2 spot is the fact that he only fought 6 years in the weight class, while Moore's accomplishments, who may be higher, like 20 years in the division. Then again, though, I think he won all 3 fights against Archie Moore. But then again, I think Moore was probably before his prime yet. He also scored a trio of wins over Joey Maxim, Lloyd Marshall, Jimmy Bivens, who I've got on this list, and Gus Lazinovich. It seems like everybody beat Gus at some point or another. Probably from 1944 through 48, if you look at his record, he fought maybe the most brutal lineup in division history, with only a robbery loss to Elmer Ray, spoiling a perfect record of over 30 fights during that time. I think it was during that time Charles showed that he was the total package of the likes that has seldom been seen in the history of the prize ring, not just the light heavyweight division. So that's why I've got Ezra Charles at number 3.
Okay, I have Ezra Charles a little higher. My number 3 is Archie Moore, the old mongoose. 28-year career, ridiculous record, was actually at his best in his late 30s and early 40s. Reigned as light heavyweight champion for nearly 10 years. Beat guys like Yvonne Durrell, Joey Maxim, numerous other Hall of Famers. One of the most devastating power punchers in history. And the only reason I don't have him higher was, the 3 losses to Charles.
Yeah, but the 3 losses were early in his career.
Well, yeah, I think they were both around the same age, though, at that point. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers and the records. But the difference is razor thin.
Well, we're not too far off here, because my number 2 is Archie Moore, so we just kind of switched ours back and forth again. Since you've already said everything about the old mongoose. He had the 3 losses to Charles. But the more that Charles beat was the same guy who would go on to beat the likes of Leonard Morrow, Henry Hall, Lloyd Gibson, and Clinton Bacon. Moore was good, but not the fighter he would later become, is my point. I mean, if you look at his competition, Charles was his first real big-time fighter that he fought. He had a nearly decade-long reign, had dozens of wins over top 25, or he had probably a dozen or so wins over top 25 all-time light heavyweights. That was hard for me to say. When I wrote it down, it didn't seem that difficult. He was denied a title shot for a long time, finally won the belt over Hall of Famer Joey Maxim at 36, and still, even after winning the title at 36, managed to reign for almost a decade. He's the career KO king. One of the quickest thinkers in the ring, very good trainer, too, after he got out of the ring. Holds wins over Hall of Famers Lloyd Marshall, Jimmy Bivens, Holman Williams, Harold Johnson, Joey Maxim, Bobo Olson, and a slew of other contenders. Can't believe he never fought Gus Lazinovich, because I think everybody else fought Gus. But he would be my number 2. But since you got to do the talking the longest time, and your phone keeps breaking up on us, I'm going to go ahead and start off with number 1, because I think we're probably in the same spot at number 1, which would be Gene Tunney, correct?
Yes, I have Gene Tunney at number 1.
Yeah, so once again, it's kind of like the thing we said with Billy Conn. You know, it's always wrong to go outside the division for analysis, but he dominated Jack Dempsey. He only lost once in an 86-fight career. I mean, he lost to the super legend Harry Greb. He would later avenge that loss 4 times, though. Beat countless contenders, including Hall of Fame light heavyweights Tommy Lofgren and George Carpentier. Great thinker in the ring, one of the best pure boxers of all time.
Yes, totally agree with you there. One of the most underrated fighters in boxing history. He would be in my top 10 pound for pound, and yeah, a record of 65-1-1 is pretty impressive, and achieved against legendary opposition. So yeah, he's definitely my number 1.
All right. Well, hey, real quick, we're going to check out a word from our sponsor, Gridiron Mo, and we'll be right back to wrap up the show.
This is former All-Pro Leon Searcy. I've got a new interactive app called Gridiron Mo, where you get to call the plays, offense or defense, and a live NFL game. You get to interact with other fans, pick the play, pick the call. That's Gridiron Mo.
And we're back. We just got done wrapping up our top 10 light heavyweight champions of our light heavyweight fighters of all time. We both ended up with Gene Tunney at number 1. I think I had Archie Moore at 2, Ezzard Charles at 3. Dave, you had the opposite of that.
Yes, Ezzard Charles at number 2, Archie Moore at number 3.
All right. So, any final thoughts on the light heavyweight division? Enjoyed the show as usual. I think the light heavyweight, it's one of the tougher divisions to rank because I think with some of the other divisions, it's pretty clear with the heavyweights, Muhammad Ali, with the welterweights, Sugar Ray Robinson, but with the light heavyweights, there are probably 5 or 6 guys that you could make a legitimate case for. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you could make a case for Bob Foster, Michael Spinks. Hell, you could probably make a case for Sam Langford being top 3.
Yes, you could.
I mean, with Sam Langford, you might be able to make a case top 3 for him in about every division known to man.
Exactly. And, at the same time, as you go down to the bottom of the list, sort of towards 9 and 10, there are a bunch of guys you could consider there that we didn't mention, guys like Philadelphia Jack O'Brien, battling Levinsky, and Harold Johnson, who I don't think either of us mentioned that were...
Mike Rossman.
Not quite. Although he was... I did a look-back article on him. He was a pretty good fighter. But, yeah, Galindez.
Yeah, Victor Galindez was a really good fighter.
Yeah, so, an interesting
I
division.
think if the White Braxton stays in the light heavyweight division longer and maybe gets a rematch and was to beat a Spinks, he'd be top 10.
He could be. He was
a really good fighter.
Yeah. Matthew Saad Muhammad was a really good fighter.
Yeah, but I don't think technically he's near the guys that are in the top 10. But you know what? There's no guy in that top 10 I'd rather see fight than Matthew Saad Muhammad.
Yes. Very courageous champion.
I mean, some of my favorite fighters when I was growing up fought in the light heavyweight division. I mean, I loved watching Yaki Lopez, Matthew Saad Muhammad, Marvin Johnson, Victor Galindez, Mike Rossman. I mean, there was a lot of action fighters at the light heavyweight division, which really there has been is the word dearth of since Michael Spinks left the light heavyweight division in '85.
Agreed.
And I think really you didn't start getting back to where, well, I think his last title defense was in '84 against Eddie Davis. So from '85 till probably the last few years, now you got Sergey Kovalev, Adonis Stevenson. Now you got a couple guys in there. But back then, there was 7 or 8 guys that you'd see fight, you know, on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon. And when you saw them fight, you knew you were going to see a great fight.
Exactly. That late 70s, early 80s era was a really good one. And, you know, throw in there, too, James Great Scott.
Yeah, James Scott. Forgot about James Scott. Ramon Raquel, or whatever the hell his name was. Ramon Raquello or something. I don't even remember what you called him. But and I would have loved to see Marvin Hagler move up and challenge Michael Spinks at some point.
That would have been. I think Spinks would have been too big for him. But
yeah, plus that big-ass right hand. I think Hagler would have had a hard time getting to him. Spinks was technically a great fighter. So was Hagler, but just in different ways, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So real quick, before we get off here, are you buying the Floyd Mayweather-Andre Berto fight?
No. No, are you?
No, and I buy almost every fight. And I actually, if this fight would have been $44.95, I'd have bought it, just because I'm an idiot. But I planned on buying it. And then last night, I'm going through my guide, and I flip over to 501, which is the pay-per-view channel. And I see $64.95.
That's a significant chunk of change.
Yeah, especially to watch him fight Berto. Now, I think Berto's actually going to give him a fight because I think Mayweather's probably not 100% into this, and I think it's going to be a little bit like the Madonna fight. The Madonna fight. I mean, if he fought Madonna, I might pay $64, but
yeah,
because you at least have a 50-50 shot of seeing some boobs. So if I'm going to pay that much money, I better either see a knockdown, drag-out fight or some boobs. But I think he goes out of his way to make the fight more competitive than normal. He wins a decision, say like 8-4, and then he tells everybody at the post-fight press conference, see, Berto was better than Pacquiao also.
Yeah, I think it's possible that Berto could catch him on an off night.
Oh, I do too, but I think he would have to knock him out probably.
Yeah, to get a decision, I would agree with you. I think, yeah, and I mean, more power to Floyd Mayweather. If he can get, that kind of money for a fight like that, can you blame him? And, wouldn't you do the same thing? But
yeah, the thing is this, I wouldn't be surprised to see him make the fight more competitive so maybe he can get a rematch and make some money off of it the next time.
Yeah, well, they say this is going to be his last fight, but, seeing is believing.
I doubt that, but we'll see. You never know. If he's smart, it is, because he's got plenty of money. And the thing is this, if you keep fighting, eventually you're going to lose. Nobody beats Father Time. The guys that retire undefeated are the guys that retired right as their peak was ending. You had guys like Rocky Marciano, more recently Joe Calzaghe. I mean, Calzaghe really didn't fight much in the way of competition to the end of his career, but he fought him, he beat him, and he got out before he had to fight any younger guys.
Yeah, and those guys that get out at the right time are rare. The more common scenario are the guys that, can't stand not having the glory and, have to come back. And
the problem with him is he's not a huge puncher. And, huge punchers can go on for a while. But it's very rare that a quick technical boxer can box into his 40s.
Yes.
And the thing is, if he – see, what I think happens, my prediction is this. He takes a year off, makes a comeback next November, and fights again. And I think at some point, a guy like Keith Thurman, if he keeps advancing, in a year or two, could be the guy that beats him.
Yes.
And the reason I say that about Thurman is the kind of guy I've always wanted to see Mayweather fight, which is the kind of fighter Jose Luis Castillo was when he beat Mayweather the first time they fought. And nobody can convince me after watching that fight a dozen times that he didn't win that fight. Castillo beat him. But the thing was, Castillo just kept throwing punches.
Yeah.
And Thurman's going to keep throwing punches. The only difference is this: Thurman's pretty good-sized welterweight, and you get somebody that big keeps pounding on you, and your ass is 40 years old, and you're already rich. And Thurman's trying to get rich. I think that's a recipe for disaster if he sticks around another year or two. I don't think Thurman, as of right now, would be ready to beat him, but I think in a year or two, if everything goes right and he keeps advancing, I think he is the guy that could take him.
Yes, at 38 years old, Floyd Mayweather is not going to get any better. And as you said, Father Time catches up with everybody eventually.
Yeah, except for me, because I'm still as good as I was when I was 20. Unfortunately, I was never that good at 20 either. I've been mediocre all my life, but you know what? It's easy to live up to. So, but hey, Dave, real quick, tell everybody where they can follow you on Twitter.
Follow me at.
Oh, Dave, you forgot.
No. I got distracted for a second there. Dave Siderski at DCS5099, and follow me on Facebook at mythicalboxing.com and on the Ringside Report.
All right, you can follow me at RiverMonster11. Make sure before Sunday's first NFL game that you check out Gridiron Mo on the iTunes Store, Apple. It's an Apple app also. I was told by Aris Presidius that sometime in the next week or two, the Android version should be out. But make sure you check out Gridiron Mo at www.gridironmo.com. That way you can sit there with your wife or your girlfriend and actually compare who can call the plays better. So, doesn't that sound like fun, Dave?
That sounds like fun. Football
well, it does to me, too.
Here.
My problem is my broke ass has just got an Android, so I got to wait 7 to 10 more days yet. But you got any final words for the listeners?
Thank you all for listening, and look forward to doing another show next Tuesday.
Yep, next Tuesday night we had the possibility of a guest that I think could be really exciting. I'm still waiting for a confirmation on that, though. So if you want to keep up with who's going to be on the show Tuesday night, go ahead and check out the Grueling Truth Facebook page. You can also go check us out at NGSC Sports. Just go to ngscsports.com, hit the show pages. You pull it down to the Grueling Truth. That's about all I got for tonight also. You can also check out our regular website, www.thegruelingtruth.com. So, for Dave Siderski, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.